Greetings and salutations! Today we are going to carve a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin for Halloween using some more advanced shading techniques. The idea behind shading is to provide a more or less a three-dimensional appearance to your carving when it's lit up. So shading occurs when you kind of scrape away the pumpkin skin, leaving only a thin layer of the pumpkin's outer lining to provide a shaded appearance. It may look difficult, but with some preparation, it's really pretty simple. So in general, this is what you'll need. Of course, you'll need a good pumpkin. The bigger the better. So here are a few other things that you'll need. Some tools and stuff that I'll discuss in a bit. So here's the stencil we'll be using that I printed off the internet. I'll provide the link to this stencil in the description below. This is a Minion from the Despicable Me movies. This stencil shows the areas that will be completely cut out and the areas to shade. The yellow areas will be cut out completely, and the orange areas will be shaded, and the black areas, of course, will not be touched at all. So here are some tools. Some of these tools are more useful than others. I have a power saw from one of the previous carving kits I got. It may look nice and powerful, but it's kind of hard to use. I rarely use it. We have some scoopers and some saws. I like to use some flathead screwdrivers of various sizes in order to clean out some parts of your carving and to also do some detailed shading. We also have some woodworking chisels of various sizes, again, to do some of the shading. I found these chisels to work pretty well, but be careful, they're pretty sharp. So, some other tools that you may or may not need include these tracing wheels, which allow you to transfer the stencil pattern onto the pumpkin. I like these for some stencils, but they're not as useful for some other stencils that are highly detailed. So, I'll use thumbtacks from time to time to do some of the more detailed transfers. So once you get everything organized, let's begin. So the first thing you want to do is attach the stencil to the pumpkin. I used masking tape to do this. The stencil may not fit perfectly on the pumpkin, so you may need to either cut the edges of the paper or fold the paper in order to get the pumpkin, or in order to get the stencil on the pumpkin properly. So now you're ready to use the tracing wheel or the thumbtack to transfer the pattern onto the pumpkin. And here we are transferring the pattern over. You'll want to make sure you punch holes with enough detail that you can follow the pattern later. So once you have transferred your pattern over completely onto the pumpkin, it's time to peel away the tape and the paper stencil. You'll want to keep the stencil handy so you can refer to it as you're cutting out your pumpkin later. So this is what it looks like. I didn't transfer everything over onto my pumpkin because my pumpkin wasn't that large. And that's the beauty about this. You have the freedom to do basically whatever you want. You can modify your stencil and your pumpkin however you want to. Sorry about the pumpkin warts. This was the flattest side of the pumpkin and I chose it for that reason. So now is when we really get to cut into the pumpkin. We're going to cut off the top. Here, there are a lot of pumpkin guts to remove. And there, just like magic, the guts are removed. Now let's carve the pumpkin. I use a box cutter to cut the pumpkin skin around the entire piece so that it helps with shading, so that I don't accidentally slip and carve or shade off an area that I don't want to carve or shade off. Don't cut all the way through the pumpkin here, but just a centimeter or so that the outer skin layer gets cut. This will help prevent, as I said, mistakes. So next we'll begin shading. A good rule of thumb is to shade first and then cut out the pieces that need to be completely cut out later. And always work from areas of least difficulty to areas of greatest difficulty. So here's a little clip of me shading the pumpkin with one of the chisels. I use a small screwdriver to get into the small corners and small areas like that. I usually stop shading when the shaded portion is about 1/4 of an inch thick, but that depends largely on what you're carving and how thick your pumpkin is, things like that. So you need to gauge how thick your pumpkin's wall is beforehand. I usually do this in a spot that I know I'm going to be cutting out completely, such as the top of the pumpkin, or you can choose an inconspicuous part of the pumpkin to cut into and see how thick your pumpkin's wall is. So once you've made progress on the shading, you can cut out the adjoining areas that need to be cut out. Here, I cut out the shoulders and the arms of the minion that are next to the shaded chest region. Finally, save some of the more sensitive areas for last. In this case, the cutouts around the minion's eyes here are the most sensitive, as the pupils are really only connected by a very small piece of pumpkin. So take your time here and use the most detailed saw that you have for these areas, and take care of any last-minute touch-ups that you have here, and test out your pumpkin to see if more shading needs to be done. And so here it is. Here's the finished product. This took about between an hour and a half and 2 hours to fully complete. I took my time and I took some breaks in between. But you can see that the shaded regions really show through, and there's some contrast between the shaded regions and the regions that are fully cut out. So I really enjoyed this. This is a project that's pretty easy. The areas that need to be completely cut out and the areas that are shaded, they're fairly large, and so there's not a whole lot of detailed here other than the area around the minion's eyes and the pupils. Those are really the most sensitive regions. So yeah, this looks pretty good, I think, and I'll go ahead and put this outside, and until next time, take care. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.